Hi, everyone. Wow. 8 years ago, I picked up a book called The $100 Startup. This isn't part of my talk, I'm just adding it. And I read through it, and I thought, maybe I should try this entrepreneurship thing. I couldn't afford to come here or to any other event or conference or summit. And 8 years later, here I am. My story begins a bit earlier, in 2007. I was living in San Diego, attending San Diego State. There we are. Love that city. I was studying business at San Diego State University, #1 party school in the nation. Very proud. And I was having, as you can see, the time of my life. The time of my life. Life was simple. Life was good. I had nothing but hope and optimism for my future. I also had my dream job. I worked at the Apple Store. The Apple Store Fashion Valley, one of the, at the time, busiest Apple stores in the entire world. And I loved it. It was my first experience teaching people how to use computers, seeing their eyes light up as they discovered the power of a user-friendly computer and what it could do for their productivity and their creativity. Does anyone remember what happened around June of 2007? What happened? The iPhone. The iPhone came out. Do you remember how it changed everything? Continues to change everything? This is a photo of me working at the Apple Store on the release day. That's me in the bottom right corner. You can see the excitement, the enthusiasm. This photo actually appeared on the apple.com homepage a few days later. This is my claim to fame. Now, around that same time, the reason I mentioned this period, the summer of 2007, is something happened to me in that period that would just completely change the course of my entire life. One summer day, out of the blue, for no apparent reason, I started feeling like a little tickle in the back of my throat, in my neck. Like any 20-something, I thought, it'll go away on its own, don't worry about it. And it didn't go away. In fact, it got worse. That little tickle became an itch. The itch became a scratch. The scratch, over months and then eventually years, evolved into tension and pain, all in my neck. It got to the point a few years later that I would wake up each morning feeling like there was a vice clutching me by the throat. Like I could barely talk on some days, had difficulty laughing, singing was almost impossible. Hanging out in groups of people was almost not an option because I couldn't project my voice because of this pain and tension. Eventually, I started going to doctors. After doctors, after doctors, specialists after specialists. At one point, eventually, I probably saw a dozen specialists in 3 countries. Not one of them could give me even a clue, even a hint of what was happening to me, much less give me any solution. No answers, no hope. Finally, I talked to a neurologist who gave me a final, last resort, one final option. Take this pill. It's a medication called carbamazepine, which is an anti-seizure, a powerful anti-seizure medication that is usually used to treat schizophrenia. It's like the nuclear option when it comes to neurological disorders, when nothing else works. And I took it. I took it happily. I was willing to do anything. The main side effect, the main impact, was it essentially numbed sensation throughout my entire body, head to toe. I walked through my days feeling drunk, feeling numb, literally, physically numb to what was going on and happening around me. But there was an even worse side effect that I would discover later that was not on the bottle, which was severe short-term memory loss. Entire experiences that I had, books I read, classes I took, relationships were wiped from my memory like they had never happened, like a formatted hard drive. I remember one day, I was living in Ukraine at the time, turning to my friend Allison, who lived in a nearby town, and saying, you know, it would be really cool if we traveled to Russia, to Moscow. At the time, there were very peaceful relations. And she turned to me with a look of shock on her face, and she said, Tiago, we just went to Moscow a few months ago. Don't you remember? Looking through these photos, this is one, felt vaguely familiar, but it was like looking at someone else's memories, someone else's life. Eventually, I was faced essentially with a choice. Two paths diverging. What would you choose if you had to make a choice each day whether to take that pill, whether to be pain-free or have access to your memories? What would you choose? I learned through that experience that memory is everything. Memory is all you have. That's who you are. It's the sum total of your life experience. Without your memories, you are actually a different person. There's something else that I learned as I went through this experience that now, today, I'm so grateful. I'm deeply grateful that I had the chance to learn so young, so early. And that's the lesson I want to share with you today. And that lesson was, I cannot rely on my biological brain and my biological body to give me the life I want. I'll say that again. This body, as much as I love it, as capable as it is not going to deliver the life, the ambitions, the goals, the impact, the friendships that I want. It can all be taken in one instant for no reason. Now, I want you to think about that for yourself. Okay, you're all incredibly smart, creative, accomplished, driven people. The cream of the crop of the knowledge work, creative industries. And I want you to consider for a second how much you demand of your brain. Think about it. Think of the burden that you place on it. You demand that it remember everything you've ever learned and read and thought about. You demand perfect focus. You demand the longest attention span. You demand that it supply you with a never-ending stream of great ideas. Is that fair? Is that reasonable? Is it sustainable? I've reached the point that I think modern life has become so complex that the complexity of managing a modern life has exceeded the capacity of the human brain. Think about what that means. Never mind a business and a career and a community and products and services. And yet, there's things that you want to do in this world, right? There's things you want to build and accomplish and create and achieve and change. So what do? How do we square this paradox that we are these fragile flesh bags trying to live a transcendent, unconventional life in a world full of chaos and uncertainty? How do we do it? The answer lies with the monkeys. The monkeys. I began to research this because of my condition, and I discovered there's a whole scientific field dedicated to this. It's called extended cognition, the study of how humans and other animals go beyond the limits of their biology, go beyond the limits of their skull. One study, which I cite in my book, was on monkeys, and scientists scanned these monkeys' brains as they were using a tool, in this case a rake, like a little rake, to reach an object and pull it towards them that they couldn't reach otherwise. Pretty simple task. But what they found was that something remarkable was happening inside that monkey's brain. Something really extraordinary, which was that the part of the monkey's brain that is responsible for mapping the boundaries of the body changed. It remapped itself to include the tool. Which means, from the perspective of the brain, the minute that monkey held that rake, the rake was just as much a part of its body as its arm, or its leg, or any other part. Do you understand the implications of this? Have you ever, I know you have experienced this, have you ever lost your smartphone and felt like you just lost a limb? You did, from the perspective of your brain. Okay, think about the implications that our technology is not just tools, they are almost literal extensions of ourselves, our cognition, our creativity, our intellect, our social intelligence. I kept going deeper, and I studied, somehow I got into, the history of what are called assistive devices, also known as prosthetic devices. I did a project for the city of San Francisco where we mapped all the wheelchair accessible routes throughout the entire city. And as part of that consulting project, I studied the history. Assistive devices, prosthetic devices, are technology designed to assist the differently abled, mobility devices, seeing devices, hearing devices. And I found something really surprising, which is that many of the most important innovations in technology, consumer technology, started as assistive devices and prosthetic devices. Think about on your phone, you know the settings where you can change the contrast or increase or decrease the font size or the brightness of the screen or all the little interactions that make using your phone more intuitive and more accessible. Many of them started as assistive devices. What's more, I realized through simple observation that prosthetic devices are universal. You're wearing many of them right now. Did you know? Anyone wearing glasses or contact lenses? Okay, prosthetic devices to enhance your sight, right? Anyone wearing a watch? A prosthetic device to enhance your perception of time. Anyone wearing shoes? Hopefully everyone. Okay. Although this is WDS, so maybe not. A prosthetic device to support and enhance your feet. To sum all this up, not only can humans extend, augment, enhance our natural capabilities, there's nothing more natural. What it means to be human is to think with and through our tools and our environment and our relationships. This idea that it's all on my brain, I have to do it by myself, the lone ranger, the self-made man or woman, is just not rooted in biology. That's not how it works. Let's turn back to creative work and knowledge work. There's something, when I was thinking about this, that I found kind of puzzling, which is, we know we're living through this historic transformational moment, right? The information scarcity that dominated our entire history, in the blink of an eye, transformed to information abundance. In the blink of an eye, it all changed. By one measure, we consume, if you can wrap your head around this, 5 times the volume of information today as we did in 1986. That comes out to the equivalent each and every day of 174 full newspapers that you consume worth of information. And the reason I found this puzzling is there's one part of the body that hasn't received an upgrade. One part of the body, I think the most important part, that doesn't have any assistive or prosthetic device, the brain. We are using essentially the same brain and nervous system that we had 200,000 years ago on the plains of East Africa. You are trying to run a complex modern life on Paleolithic hardware. You know how you get mad when your phone is like a year too old? There you go. I think we're reaching this moment. I believe it's time that we have a prosthetic device for the mind. A prosthetic device for our brain. Think about what would be possible if you were not constrained by your biology. You were not constrained by your natural memory. You were not limited to your natural talents that you were born with. You were not limited to the experiences and the knowledge that you've gained. I call this prosthetic device a second brain. Instead of trying to make this brain better, which is kind of hard, let's just create a second brain. Now, when I say second brain, people often come to mind these sort of futuristic, sci-fi, artificial intelligence, network nodes kind of visualizations, right? And there's definitely people working on this, right? This will happen eventually, but this is not what I mean. This is not what I mean. I don't know about you, but this has nothing to do with my day-to-day problems and day-to-day reality. And I don't really want to sit back and wait around for some tech company who doesn't have my interests in mind to deliver this solution for me. I'm talking about something much more basic, much more common, something you already know, already use. I'm talking about notes. Notes. Everyone's like, and? Notes are a timeless, and ancient technology. Did you know the word note is among the 2% oldest words in the English language? And it's found across cultures, across languages. There's nothing that's been around longer. If you go back to the earliest examples of writing in Sumeria, they were notes about how many bushels of wheat or whatever were in the storehouse. Casual, quick, informal, to get something done. There's a couple things that notes do when they interact with our psychology. So, in our short history with digital technology, 30, 40, 50 years, our relationship to information so far has been obsessed, totally dominated by information that is novel and public. Have you noticed? Everything, let's do novel first. Everything is new on the internet. New. I call this neomania, the obsession with things that are new just because they're new. You're reading one thing that's new, and then you get interrupted from reading that to switch to another thing that is even more new. It's an obsession. And public information. To make matters worse, all the information, or most of it, a lot of it, is public by default. Everyone is online screaming into the wind at full volume every random passing thought that they had. Okay. Notes inherently do something when we use them. They shift our attention. They shift our focus instead towards what is timeless and what is private. Instead of novel and public, timeless and private. What happened to timeless ideas? Ideas that take time, more than the 5 seconds of a TikTok video, to sink in, to be absorbed, take work, take effort. But once you put in that effort, they become part of who you are, the fabric of your being. And how about privacy? Remember that? What if the power of technology, the same technology that we have, was used to develop and refine and distill our thinking to make it the best it can be before we take it into the public arena. This is what notes are for. To ask this as a question, what would it look like to reinvent the ancient, timeless practice of note-taking for our modern, connected age? This is the question that I've dedicated my career to solving. And I want to share with you three answers. Three answers that are so hard-won from a decade and a half of my personal experience, from teaching, at this point, over 5,000 students from over 100 countries, and now, most recently, writing a book. These are the three lessons I would have wanted that 22-year-old self to know. First, take your notes everywhere. Ideas don't arrive on schedule. Have you noticed? They don't arrive on command. In fact, the best way to have no ideas is to tell yourself, okay, come up with a good idea, right? Zip, nothing. But then in the shower later, driving on the bus, having a conversation with a friend, watching TV, then the mind is like, oh yeah, here you go. Lots of ideas. Okay. Notes have to be ubiquitous. In the past, this meant having some kind of journal, paper, carrying it around with you everywhere, somehow remembering to have a pen or pencil, right? And even if you somehow manage to write that thing down, it's fragile, it's not searchable, it can't really be reorganized, it's easy to lose, okay? The rise of smartphones has been a quantum leap in this realm. We now have a device, a supercomputer with us almost at all times. And the smartphone sitting in your pocket or your bag or your purse right now almost certainly already has a Notes app installed. You don't even have to download anything. Okay? Go and find it. Apple Notes. Android phones have their own version. That is what I'm talking about. My bias is becoming clear, I know. Take your notes everywhere. Now, this sometimes leads people to think, oh, I need one app to rule them all. Don't do it. Don't fall into that trap. This is not Lord of the Rings. There is not one ring. There's as many rings as you want. You will always use probably many dozens of different pieces of software and consume information and content from many sources. Just to name a few of the most common: books, both ebooks and paper books, and audiobooks, articles from websites, from news sites, from blogs, notes you already have, notes on classes you took, books you've read, quotes from conferences and summits you've been to, social media, the things you've favorited, the things you've bookmarked, the things you've said, okay, that actually is important for me to keep, to remember. Podcasts, and just web pages in general, right? Go to all those places. They all have their uses. But take this crucial step. Route, centralize all of it back to one single central place, which is your digital notes app. The one place that is backed up to the cloud, that is synced across all your devices, and that allows you to take just quick, informal notes without many strict rules. And if you're wondering which app should I choose, which is the most common question, go to my YouTube channel. I have a 4-part, in-depth, step-by-step guide where I will help you find the exact perfect note-taking app for you out of over 60 second brain apps that now are on the market. Second, what should you write down? You may be wondering. Right? What do I write? Most of us have memories of school where the teacher said, write this down, it will be on the test. Right? The implication of that statement is the only reason to note anything down is for one short-term outcome. Pass a test or a quiz, get a good grade, write the essay. I'm talking about something very different. I'm talking about a lifelong collection of your most important knowledge and expertise to serve a lifetime of projects and goals and endeavors that you cannot even imagine. So, you need a different approach. I really implore you to not make this step of deciding what to write down an intellectual one. This is one of the biggest pitfalls. To make it a checklist, highly rational, logical, step by step. That will not work. Okay, for a lot of reasons that I won't get into. What you want to do is to capture what resonates. Resonates. Resonance. It's like an echo in your soul. And the actual best way to determine if something resonates is to pay attention to signs and signals in the body. Look for goosebumps standing up on your arm, the hair standing up on the back of your neck, a tingling sensation on your face. Sometimes the sensation of time passing will kind of slow down. Your environment will kind of fade away. Your pupils may dilate. There's all these little signs. They'll be different for you. But that is a sign from your body using emotions and intuition, which don't consume a lot of energy, that what you are encountering is something surprising. Surprise. That is your filter. Which is kind of obvious, isn't it? If you read something and it doesn't surprise you, you already knew it. So why write it down? Don't take notes on all the things you already think and already believe and already know, which is actually what people tend to do. Okay? The point is to change your mind. Take notes on things that are surprising, that you disagree with, that provoke you, that confuse you, that move you, that inspire you. You can Google answers to a question, but you can't Google a feeling. And third, this might be the most life-changing. This might be the single kind of most popular highlight, which is don't organize all the stuff that you're collecting. It's digital notes, but it's also your emails, your files, it's documents, PDFs, Word documents, spreadsheets, all the digital stuff that we collect. Most people try to organize it by these really broad categories. Don't do that. Okay? Don't organize like you are a librarian. I love libraries, but you are not a librarian. Okay? You're not creating an encyclopedia. Don't have these categories like psychology, right? Or like economics, business, quotes, ideas. That's my favorite. Ideas. It's like okay? You are one person. This is just you're one individual. The best way to organize is according to your projects and your goals. Go in there, create a folder or a notebook or a tag or whatever system it uses for each one of the currently active projects that you're working on and the goals that you're working toward. When it comes to individuals, the reason all this is worth it really is to advance your projects and your goals. Organize to support the life that you're trying to create. To put this another way, instead of organizing ideas by where they come from, organize them by where they're going. Organize them by where you are going or where you want to go. You might be wondering, and a lot of people do as they get into this world, there's a lot of terminology, systems, processes, apps, different workflows. Why do all this? And there's a lot of benefits. You'll be more focused because you can offload what you're working on to your second brain. You will be less stressed from being able to kind of offload your thoughts and anxieties and worries and just examine them objectively. You'll save time by being able to revisit past thinking and past thoughts, all sorts of things. But there's really something deeper here, which is the reason this is all worth doing is self-understanding. It's understanding you, your memories, your nature, your personality, the just unique way your mind works. I really think of building a second brain, or you can just say taking notes in an intentional way, as a radical act of self-worth. It's a radical act of self-worth to say, my memories are worth keeping. To say, my ideas matter enough to be written down. And not just written down, but organized and revisited over time. It's a radical act of self-worth for those of us that want to understand ourselves, but also want to build and achieve and create things in the world. You get the best of both worlds. It's an exercise in self-understanding and also helps you create some amazing stuff. You might be wondering what happened with my medical condition. After years and years of shuttling back and forth from one doctor to the next, I was sitting in a doctor's office one day, and I just had this flash of insight and realized I have to take control of this situation. No one is going to save me. No one is going to just give me a pill or a surgery or a treatment that will just make this disappear so I can go back to living that life that I was supposed to live. At that moment, I stood up, I marched over to the receptionist, and you could tell by the look on her face, no one ever does this. Because I said, "Can I have my patient record?" And she was like, "What do you mean?" I was like, "All of it. I want all of the records." And at that point, it was like this size. It was stacks and stacks. I took it home, I digitized it. Back then it was scanning like one at a time into a computer, organized it, distilled it, started to annotate and analyze and really study what all this information was telling me. And what I discovered was that I didn't have an illness or an infection. What I had, which was clear once all the dots were connected, was a functional condition. A functional condition is when something in your body needs to change. The way that your body works, the function has to change. It's not a virus or bacteria or anything. Based on that insight, I started putting in place a simple but important set of habits, self-care habits, taking care of my nutrition, my eating, my sleep, exercise, actually thinking about, for the first time, my mental and emotional health. That is how I found a solution. That is how I became pain-free. I think a lot of life is this way. A lot of areas and the problems that we face in our lives, the solutions are out there. The answers already exist. I mean, isn't that kind of obvious? Someone has faced this before. Any challenge or roadblock that you're facing. The problem is there's too much of it. What is missing is someone, that could be you, with the will and the intention and the desire and the willingness to take it in, do something with it, organize it, distill it, make sense of it, and shape it to create the outcomes, the results that you want in your life for your business or your career. That's what digital note-taking, a second brain, is for. There was an economist, Herbert Simon, who said, "A wealth of information creates a poverty of attention." He was writing back, I think, in the 40s. Little did he know. In the 40s, he was saying it's unsustainable. And I think that's what we're living in. With all of our resources and all of our wealth, we are impoverished when it comes to attention. There's just none left. Have you noticed? If you have 30 seconds free waiting for the subway to arrive, you are being productive or consuming content on your phone. There's not even 30 seconds of unoccupied attention in your day. But I think that's largely because we are in this early adolescent stage of technology. It just happened. Technology just appeared on a historic timescale last minute. If we can get through this adolescence together, if we can find a way to bring intention and strategy and our own goals and projects and desires to it, we will be the first generation to go beyond the desert of attention, beyond to the mountains of abundance, abundance of knowledge, abundance of information, abundance of wisdom that I know is waiting for us. I invite you to join the Second Brain movement. It's way bigger than any methodology or book or course. It's an entire movement, dozens, hundreds of different pieces of software, many methodologies, many approaches we're having a fun time, and we're changing the world. Thank you.